I would like to call this July 9th meeting of the Oregon Public Library Board to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Stata.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Goblin.
Here.
Bergstrom.
Here.
Beshen.
Here.
And Bonsonfield. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. I would entertain a motion to adopt our agenda as presented today.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. And this is the part of our agenda that allows for community input. Is there any community input this evening?
May I make a shameless plug?
Please.
Yes,
Please.
please.
Love your shameless plug. Yes, there's an ice cream social at the senior center tomorrow from 4:30 to 7. One of our fundraisers that we don't have to worry about the weather. It'll be food and ice cream and music. They're great fun. So if you have a chance, please come. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And then I just wanted to say thank you again for letting us use the creative space for the robotics team. They're loving it.
It's great.
Fantastic, right? I've been shifting dates around randomly, and Kelly's been really good. Dealing with it.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something as a community member, not as a board member? Is that allowed?
Sure.
Go sit over there.
Okay, I'll go sit over there.
Stand by the wall.
I'll stand here. So on the 28th, the Oregon Area Progressives had a strategy planning retreat here, and for at least half of the people in the group, it was the first time they'd ever set foot in the library, this library,
Wow.
and they were so impressed. It was a perfect space, and they got to walk around during the lunchtime and just were incredibly impressed. So thank you for the use of that, and we'll do it again.
Thank you, community member. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve our minutes from the June meeting?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the June meeting minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to review and payment of available bills and accepting the financial report. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Laura. Any thing you'd like to point out, Jennifer?
I don't have anything in particular, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Is there any questions from anybody?
No.
All right. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're moving right along this evening. Moving on to information items. 6A, the library director's report.
So I just want to take a minute. There's been a lot of talk about volunteerism here at the library, and we just want to celebrate two of our great volunteer programs. In addition to the programs like Chris mentioned earlier in the meeting, I want to highlight our garden volunteers this summer. We have 13 volunteers, which is I think the most I've had since I've started. And that includes a lot of new volunteers this year, and every week you see different volunteer out weeding, and you can see the instant results of their hard work. So just really excited to see all that hard work and dedication and just contributing to the library. So if you see somebody that volunteers, please thank them, especially Barb Skiles, who coordinates the garden volunteers herself and then is out there working extra hard, both to support them and in the gardens. So we appreciate them. We also have our summer library program desk is staffed entirely by teen volunteers, with most of the volunteers in 7th and 8th grade, and that's super exciting. We had to actually cap the volunteer program at 50 to make sure that we had enough opportunities for those who are volunteering to get significant time to do that. So that was really exciting. So just, that takes a huge time commitment off of our staff while still serving our patrons. So that's super exciting to see that. It also creates great opportunities for teens to be constructively involved in the library, which we love to see that happen as well. So that's a really great opportunity. I just want to update you too, we have the final version of our donor recognition book that was professionally designed by Orange Book Designs. So I have the cover and the table of content page here, but it's really a great tribute. We have a temporary book that we've had out like we promised, but we really want to have something that can be printed. It'll be a hardcover printed book that'll be available at the library. That'll be just really telling the story of the project and all the generosity and volunteerism that went into making the library possible. So just want to highlight that. I hope to have next month to have the actual print copy here. We also have a web version that we'll be able to make available to folks as well. So that's really exciting to see it come together. As Laura can tell you, we double checked and triple checked and quadruple checked things to get it right for the folks that supported the project. So we really appreciate that. And the graphic designer gave us a great discount too, so they did a tremendous job. Bob was amazing to work with on it. We also want to celebrate that we got the IRA Clean Energy Incentive for our solar panels. So we filed, Energy Tax Savers worked for us and filed for the library solar and the village's electric vehicle purchase together. So the village just got their $43,000 check, and so that's another refund in addition to the $489,000 we had gotten last year. So that's almost all of the investment that the village made to upgrade us from the solar, to add the solar and geothermal to the new library. They had committed $600,000, and we're at a point where they have recouped most of that investment through these energy incentives, which is exciting to see. As of today, we only have one warranty item on the building to still go. So today, Bruce Company was outside. They replaced 5 or 6 trees, and they did an amazing job. You can definitely tell which ones they replaced. They did a lot of pride in putting them in correctly, and we'll be working on watering those to make sure that those replacement trees thrive. So that's great to wrap up. We added a special shelving and feature area in the teen area to display new titles and have some engaging activities and event promotion for teens. So that's kind of a new addition. So if you haven't been to that space, check that out. Also a little bit of sound absorbing panels there as well. The old library, they approved the contract to demolish that at Monday's village board meeting. The lot where that is currently housed, it will be demolished along with the senior center, and that will be used for, is expected to be used for the future senior center expansion, which they are currently working on schematic design, conceptual and schematic design for. So that process is up to the village, so it's not like we, as a library or the library board, had any decision over what happened with that property. It is a village property, and that is the plan for it at this point. So you can expect to see, they signed the contract, they're expecting to start as early as next week. So the fire department was using it for training last night. Yeah. So there's a hole in the roof now, some drywall that I hear may have gotten beat up in my office last night. So.
Did they give you an axe to let you play with it too? I'm just curious.
My husband was at fire training last night. So just so you know to expect that, because I think some community members might be aware of that and some may not. So you may hear questions or concerns or what's going on there, and that's the purpose is to make room for the future senior center, and then also just because those buildings, as they're not manned, there's some cost to having them available. There's some safety risks and things as those structures sit empty in the meantime. So they've decided to proceed with that now. The other thing from the village standpoint, trustee Jason Mankey resigned from the village board in mid-June. So that leaves a vacancy on the village board. So an email went out earlier today. They're going to be working on taking applications for a village board member to serve in that seat until the next election occurs. And then also at the June meeting, they discussed impact fees, which are fees that they can collect on new development that help relieve the existing residents for the burdens of providing additional capacity of their services. And so they looked at an analysis for the library included in that, and those costs were updated. What they can assess it would now be based on, instead of projected costs for building, actual costs that we incurred. And so they're looking at proceeding with that process. They do have to have a public hearing and some certain steps, but they'll be bringing that back to the meeting, and we anticipate they would approve that. It won't again affect current residents, it would just affect new development to help contribute to the costs that were incurred. The other fun thing we had is we had the Dane County Sustainable Leaders Cooperative hosted here at the library, which was a great group of environmentally minded leaders from school districts and municipalities, cities, village presidents, mayors, things like that throughout Dane County, and a very great group of leaders that were here. So it was exciting to see them walk through our facility and get a tour. And I think that's all I have under that item. Oh, I do have our July and August event brochure. Again, this isn't exhaustive, but it does highlight the majority of our events, kind of the special one-offs that are less regular anyway. And then I should probably talk about the statistics report. We had kind of talked about how last year we were so busy the first couple months because we were moving that we had some really high door counts. And we're kind of back to the place where now we had more visits this June than we did last year, so we're kind of expecting it to see it be more busy than last year moving forward now that we're past those few peak visit months. Our meeting room and study room usage continues to be very popular, especially the study room usage, and we're hoping to see that sustain. Waunakee Library saw that continue to grow after they moved, and even now they added some study pods because they found that their meeting room capacity wasn't actually enough for what the demand was. And same with circulation, it's kind of getting to that point where it's starting to again be a little bit higher than it was last year. We're kind of, for 2025, we're about 80% of our circulation going through the self-checkout, which doesn't mean our staff isn't doing things, but it kind of frees them up to do more complex things, which is great. It's pretty easy to use the self-checkouts, and a lot of people love that. So those are just some highlights. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but hoping to continue to see many of those numbers grow.
That's great.
The new library cards issued is down, but like yesterday I was at the desk for 4 hours and I saw 3 new people get a new card. You think at some point we would run out of people that have that one. But we do get a lot of visitors from the area, from the whole school district, and then there's always people that are moving in or getting big enough to get a card that haven't had one before.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions for Jennifer? Thank you.
It's so miraculous, actually, when you think about the library that's going to be torn down this, coming soon, and the capacity is just tremendously different, exponentially different. It's amazing.
Moving on to, let's see, where we're, 6B, management team and strategic plan quarterly reports.
Due to some staffing considerations, we don't have all the reports, so we'll include that at our next month's meeting.
Sounds good. Committee reports.
The personnel committee will be meeting later this summer, early fall, once we get the director position description updated.
Sounds great.
Not done yet.
Then communication, updates on federal funding and DPI reorganization.
So I just wanted to share this update from DPI. We had talked about some of the IMLS funding on the federal level and what was going on with that. So just wanted to share this update and then some information about how they're going to be reorganizing to be able to effectively continue the work that they do to support libraries in Wisconsin. They do have all of their 2025 funding, which they were not sure about how that would look. So glad to have that update to share with you.
Thank you for including it. Any questions there? Okay. Any village board announcements in addition to what Jennifer already added? I don't think so. We can move on to school district announcements.
The big thing this week is the beginning of summer school. And it was very smooth and children all found their right way to the right class. And that is always a struggle at the high school when they're little. But if you've seen the pictures on social media, we had 30 plus teenagers in green t-shirts that were shepherding the younger children to where they needed to go. So we have also a record number of participants, so that is a program that just continues to grow.
Great, thank you. Let's see, discussion and possible action items, Dane County Library Standards and the 2023 through 2027 Plan of Service.
So there's no action needed on this, but it's a good thing for us to look at. We usually look at it once a year, so the memo kind of outlines it. Last year we didn't meet standards because we didn't have enough open hours because we were closed for 3 weeks for moving, so we had a provisional exception. But in general, we're doing really well, so I have kind of an explanation of the standards. There's some quantitative ones and qualitative ones, and they've really kind of eliminated some when they revised these, I think in 2023, that went into effect this year. So the main things they're looking at minimum numbers for are the number of hours you're open per year, which we meet, the minimum number of staff per capita, but they've actually changed the staff per capita calculation, and now they have an adjustment factor, so it's the number you're gonna see in the report isn't actually the number of staff, it's staff plus something related to the number of self-checks plus the number of stores, so it's not really staff alone, because I feel like having a sorter, you know, might eliminate the need to have some folks there. So just want you to not think that that's actually your staffing levels. And then the number of internet access workstations and material expenditures per capita. So they're useful tools to see we're in great shape for all of them. And I don't foresee, we'll just, as we get, the next kind of level is when we get to the 25,000 population. So when we get to, Oregon grows to like around 18,000, that's when we'll start looking and say, hey, do we need to work on our collection budget, or are we okay? But we should be in good shape at this point. It's pretty confusing to understand how they work, but also this is the Dane County Library Service Agreement that just kind of provides the Dane County Services mission, and then also includes the standards there, so it's just good to refresh. But you can kind of see that they have the standards and kind of say, you know, if you're in this population category, what's the metric they're using to score that, you know, for those things. Again, it's kind of hard to understand until you see it applied, but I also have in here the chart they provide that summarizes how you're doing. So you have to be above 100% in either the min column or the top of the range column, but you don't have to be above in both. So as long as you're over 100% in one, you're great, which is super confusing. So for example, we have to be open a minimum of 3,000 hours per year, which averages 58 hours per week, and so we are, you know, reaching that, no problem. So I think the one that we'll have to pay the closest attention to will be the collection money, just depending on how fast things, you know, grow. We'll just want to make sure that that particular item is keeping pace, because it's not something we've had a big history of increasing, just because we usually have other priorities, and that's one of the areas where we're kind of having some room to grow to be where we might need to be at. But I think 127,500 would get us there, so we have a lot of time to get to that benchmark. So we're in good shape, just something to keep in mind, and it's just good to see, you know, kind of where we fall in relationship to other communities with certain metrics, and everybody's unique for their community. I'm happy to take any questions. I may or may not know the answer, but I can certainly get them from Dane County if we need to follow up.
I just want to thank you for understanding how to do this and just taking care of it. Amen. So thank you.
The other thing I should mention is you get up to 3 exemptions. So if we were to not meet a standard like we did with the hours, you can request it, they approve it, and then you get up to 3 of those in a 10-year period, and so then you can, you know, address it if you were short or something unexpectedly happens and you didn't meet a particular goal. Because if we don't meet this, then it changes the county library taxing element, which is way more money to, we don't want to have that happen, so.
Well, thank you. Any other questions? to the 2026 library budget request.
So I have a couple things in your packet. This is kind of the last time we kind of talked really big picture, and now we have some more specifics. We're going to kind of hone in, but we're still kind of just plugging in what we have available. So shared a resolution from the village board, kind of providing their budget direction and priorities given the referendum not passing and how they're going to proceed with the budget. In many ways, it's a budget year just like any other, where we really work to think about our expenses and prioritize what our needs are and how we can serve the community. And at the same time, it's a little unique because it's kind of following after that referendum didn't get approved, and we know that we need to look a little bit more closely and really think carefully about the requests and the needs that we have. So I just wanted to share the resolution, and you can kind of see what the priorities are and how it'll be approached by the village board. So there's many things that'll work the same. There are a couple additions, if I can get to, or just tweaks, I guess, to how things will be working. So there's kind of going to be an additional kind of level of review. I guess the village administrator always reviewed the capital improvement plan, but kind of reviewing it with certain guidelines and priorities in mind at the village board's direction. So that'll happen. We have very few capital. We've already done our capital investments, and most of the capital things we have are very minor, so we should be in good shape. In regards to that, it shouldn't affect us that much, but we certainly do want to keep our capital needs out there so they can be part of the conversation, and we've already submitted that last month. But for the operational budget, again, the village administrator will conduct a review of the information, the budget requests that we and all the other departments provide, and may make different recommendations than a department head for a particular reason. And these are kind of the guidelines that he's been instructed to follow to make those recommendations. They're kind of asking you to focus again on our core services, the current level of service, and to prioritize things. What they're trying to avoid doing is doing across the board cuts that kind of affect the quality of all services, and instead really want to prioritize what do we want to do, and how can we do those things that we're choosing to do effectively and efficiently and to the level that the community expects. And it also may mean that we're choosing to not do certain things that we've been doing because they may no longer be the biggest or best use of the time and resources available. They also share how they hope to handle employee compensation. They're kind of changing the wage schedule from a 12-step schedule to hopefully a 16-step schedule to give some more options for that. Typically what we do for our staff members is we follow whatever direction is adopted by the rest of the village to be consistent with other departments and employees. So, you know, there's a lot of information in here, and I think it just helps us focus and, you know, gives us something to think about as we provide those requests. And then it'll, you know, as we get feedback, it'll kind of explain what feedback is given to different groups as we continue to work on it. The other part that, there's a couple of attachments, and so the other new part of the process is a department worksheet. And I think that's intended to help better see how department experiences are, what pressures and challenges that they're facing, and that'll just trying to be transparent with the village board, so as they make decisions, they have that input. It doesn't mean they're gonna make a particular decision, but they have kind of a full picture, a better understanding of the work that the different departments do from their perspective. So they have a couple of questions, and we'll come back to that later on in the agenda for at least one of the questions, but kind of what the organizational experience are, what do you see as your department's core responsibilities, what challenges do you have, what are the impact of some maybe priority activities that you're doing that take up time and maybe aren't really having the impact or reaching community members in the way that we need to. Some ideas about how to, you know, better or more efficiently deliver those services, and then what is your priority investment for the budget year. So that's kind of intended to help make some of those difficult decisions in a way that still does what we can to serve the community. This is the proposed 16-step wage schedule that would apply. if it gets passed. And that, certainly depend on funding. And then there's some slight tweaks to the budget schedule, but the main thing that you need to know is that our request is due to the village board after, the Friday after our August meeting. So typically we meet in August and we'll again have more detailed conversation, but if we can always schedule a special meeting if we need to make decisions before then. Also included in the packet is the presentation that the village administrator did when he was talking to the village board about the budget process and worksheet to kind of outline some of the overall considerations, some of the challenges and priorities. One of the things that they did discuss at the village board level is that they do not want to pursue another referendum in the near future. The very earliest they would even consider it would be 2028. So that's just kind of something to think about as budgets move forward. So they did a nice job of kind of talking about some of the budget parts, and then they're also simultaneously working on some strategic planning to make those choices in a more thoughtful way, but that's going to be not just this budget year, they'll be moving forward. So if you have any questions, let me know and I can try to get those answers, but I just wanted to make sure you had all that information as we talk about the budget. So then I'm going to move on to kind of where we're at with our budget. And the good news is that our revenue is projected to increase, and a lot of that is in part because of our increased use. I'm just trying to get to the end of the presentation, so bear with me just a minute here. So I'm going to be flipping back and forth between this. I don't know if I can do that easily, so I might just follow. I might just stay with this and then we can flip over to the spreadsheet just so I don't lose my place and waste a lot of time. So we are fortunate to be able to project some significant increased revenue, and that's largely due to the county reimbursement. And what happens is the reimbursement we receive from the counties, including Dane in 2026, is based on use in 2024. And as you know, we had a very good year for use in 2024 with the move to the new library. The other factors that go into that is operating expenses, and so we also had some increased costs which factor into that formula. And so now that combination is resulting in projected increased revenue for us. Between those two, Dane County and other counties, we're expecting that to be around $66,000 for 2026, which is a good year for that to happen. We're also finding that our copy revenue line item has performed much better than we had budgeted, and part of that is due to just increased visitors. We added the faxing service at the beginning of this year, and then also just have more people using computers and more people visiting, so that leads to more copying and printing, and thus more revenue. We don't know if that's going to sustain, but we do anticipate increasing the budget somewhat to reflect that, because we want to be realistic when we budget too. So always the biggest part of our budget is staff wages and fringes. Right now, the numbers you're seeing in the spreadsheet show a placeholder of 2%. Doesn't mean it's going to be 2%. It could be more. It could be less. We just don't know. It's just a placeholder to show that there's going to be, we would hope that there's going to be some increase to that line item, but we don't know what it is. So we're just trying to account for that in some way or another. We're very lucky that this is probably the only year I've ever been a library director where we have health insurance numbers at this point in the year. So those numbers are reflected in the budget spreadsheet based on people's current elections. People can always choose to change their elections during open enrollment in October, or if they have a qualifying life event that may change their eligibility or coverage needs. So we're going to talk about this a little later, but from my perspective, there's kind of two priorities for staffing that kind of keep coming up and stick out. So the first is that, as you're aware, that we have the youth services library assistant position that started in 2024. It's really been working 20 hours a week since of May of 2024. So that's basically a part-time 20-hour position. But we had to kind of be creative because it was a position that kind of we weren't able to plan for because we weren't able to include in our budget for a variety of reasons, that we really, it's kind of a responsive, responding to how we need to staff a new library, increase use and things like that. So we did, we funded it with some health insurance savings in 2024 because of employee elections and changes that way. And then in 2025, it was funded for 36 weeks by a generous donor and then 16 weeks by the village budget. So our priority would be to be able to continue that level of staffing. Even the 3 weeks in January this year where we didn't know that we would have that donation, or while we were waiting to get things arranged with the employee, the difference was noticeable in scheduling and just making things work. And so thinking about going back to not having that is just horrific. So it's just been a huge help to have that position, and really feel like it's critical to continue it forward. If we're not able to continue it, then it would in effect be a cut to current staffing levels, and that would not be ideal. The other thing that really is kind of a stress point right now is just trying to cover any time somebody that's scheduled isn't able to work their scheduled hours. And we have, you know, a lot of people are on vacation, and the longer they're here, the more vacation they get. And so anytime there's somebody that calls in sick or you know, has a planned vacation, needs to take medical leave, those gaps are very difficult to fill. And we try to split them out against our different team members, but you know, when you're already kind of doing what you can, it takes away from other things. And so that kind of puts us, you know, combats, you know, we want to serve the public and be available to meet those needs, but then we also have some other things like paying the bills that we have to get done, and it puts those priorities at odds, you know, because you can't do both of those things at the same time. So any relief we could get to that would be ideal. The other account, you're going to see a significant increase this year is professional services. So we got those numbers like the day the packet went out. And the reason that those costs are going up is because there's two of the South Central Library System fees that are calculated based on library use. And so when our circulation goes up, our share of those costs relative to other libraries who may not be having their numbers go up, goes up. And so those, in part, those increased costs are going up because of the increased circulation in 2024. One of the fees is based solely on circulation, so that number is tied more closely to that. The other number has different factors, and so it's, you know, not quite as dramatic in terms of the increase, but overall it is a significant increase between those two South Central Library System fees. And those fees are critical, that membership is critical for our operations, so it's not something we could choose to not participate in and still be successful. Online subscriptions also always kind of increase, and so there's some placeholders for those. Those numbers again aren't going to be available till September, but they always kind of stay within the 5% range. So there's, for some of them, and there's some increased costs for overdrive at the state level as well. For building costs too, we're still making sure that all of the ongoing future costs are accounted for. So the first year we were here, we were under warranty, so we didn't have any service call costs. And then we are also in the process of getting all the required inspections established and ongoing preventative maintenance. We've largely accomplished all those things that we'd like to do on an annual basis. There'll still be some one-offs and things that will phase in, but so there'll be some changes to those. There's also some fees that are irregular that don't incur every year, so we're trying to figure out how to wrap those things into the budget as well. So it might be we do A in this year, and then other years we do B and kind of alternate. We're still working through those. So we're waiting for some numbers on snow removal and pest control, which the village coordinates. We don't have a super large need for pest control, but we have had a mouse in the library, so it is helpful to have that coordinated service.
We are on prairie, so. Yeah.
So those, I really haven't had time to work on those yet, but we do have contracts for most things, so we'll have a really good picture of that in August. We also are gonna be evaluating our supply budget, so just more use, you go through more consumables like toilet paper and cleaning supplies and things like that. So we're still working on what that target number should be moving forward. And then we are, starting to have some service calls. We haven't had a ton, but we need to, if you have to have somebody come out, to fix the elevator on a Saturday, that can add up really quickly. So we're trying to, balance being practical, but also have to have some funds to be able to cover those things. And so we also try to combine visits. So if the electrician has something that's not urgent, we might wait until there's something urgent and we can fix all those things in one trip instead of having different calls. But we're still not quite, at some point we'll kind of figure out what the typical year is, and we just don't have a typical year to base that off yet. And I just want to point out, I have a spreadsheet in the packet, but this is all preliminary, so if you come back next month, the numbers are very different. It just means we got more work. It's just hard to talk about without having some sort of number to react to. In the packet, you have a description that talks about every account and what it's used for, and then if there's arrows before it, it highlights any notable changes that are happening in that account for the year to try to, just explain to you what's going on. So I'm happy to kind of talk through those. I think I've already kind of highlighted kind of the main things, but just to pull up the revenue side, again, we're talking about a $66,000 increase in revenue, which is a great year for that to happen. You do see a new line here that is that revenue for that donation for the staff position that we had this year that we haven't had in previous years. So you're seeing that in our 2025 revenue, in case you're wondering what that is for. We have our expenses into two groups. The first one is just our regular operations, and then the other part is for kind of more building costs. And so again, the light blue is all the placeholder numbers for the staff wages and fringes. If you change any one of those numbers, it affects most of the others. Those are all placeholders so far. Trying to see, we have talked about the online subscriptions going up, and the professional services you can see here, that's a significant increase. And we can talk about that more in depth if you have questions about why that's so large. I can show you the calculations, but
ask how many
Yeah.
hours you're kind of planning for to help support your staff? Are we planning, I know we have the 20 hours that we need to do that aren't FTE. The additional hours to help support your staff, are we asking for enough hours that will make a difference? Are we asking for a full FTE, and then those extra FTE hours will be help to support, or how is that gonna work?
yeah, so I think we'll talk about that more with the next item. I think the village approach is they're trying to give each department what they need most. But our staffing needs are a little unique because we moved from a building that was very small and very differently used than the one we're in now, with certain community considerations in mind. So right now, what you're seeing for staffing levels just includes what was in the budget previously, so we haven't yet added that, any additional staffing hours into that.
I know that we
So-
like to try to follow the rules and do all the
Yeah.
things, but I also wanna make sure we're not asking for what we need, I guess is what I wanna make sure that we're doing, so.
Yeah, and it's really
I know
just
it's
hard
hard.
timing to do any of those things, and
I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure that we're not being,
yep.
you don't ask, you don't forget sometimes, so.
Yeah, and I started exploring today how to do a sub pool, because one of the challenges with the extra hours is somebody may have already worked an 8-hour day and then somebody has to fill in for a 4-hour shift, and some of that is just management that just happens with, certain positions that's kind of to be expected, but we'd like to kind of not have to do that quite as often, so we're kind of looking at, is a sub pool feasible? There's some challenges with that, because, people go over a certain number of hours, it changes WRS eligibility, their health insurance benefits, and their vacation hours, and so there's a lot of complication to that. And then also for some of the service desks, you have to really, we thought, well, do we just have a sub? Some libraries have subs for certain things, but that's also difficult, because you need people to be here enough hours to know how to do all the things that they're asked to do while they're doing those things. So I don't have a great answer yet. We're trying to just be creative and look at lots of different options and see what might be feasible.
Along that line, does Dane County have I mean, I would think that we're not the only library that's looking at something like this. I mean, with shared revenues down, like a resource pool that, or is it something that actually the system should be talking about when library directors get together, like how are you handling this, and is there a cooperative way to be able to have a sub-pool that everybody could?
Yeah, I think the subbing need is exacerbated by the staffing levels, so if we had our kind of ideal number of desk staff, it wouldn't
Right.
be quite the issue
Right.
it is, but since there's not really a lot of redundancy in lots of places, if you take a piece out, there's gaps, whereas
Yeah.
if you're staffed a little bit more
Fully.
fully, then those gaps can be absorbed, so it's not, the challenge that we're having with it maybe is more noticeable than it might be in another library that
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
a larger staff size.
Got it.
But there's not, as far as I know, any organized effort. I know Stoughton hires staff, some subs. I know McFarland, makes certain things available to other employees. So there's different approaches, but I think part of it is just that having somebody that, if you need them to do all these things, having them at the level where they can do all those things.
Yeah.
You have to work a certain number of hours
Yeah.
to do that. So for building operations, again, the blue is the personnel costs. We're still new to solar panels, so I don't necessarily want to cut the amount of cost, but I hope that in the future we'll be able to have some more cost savings to our operating budget as we kind of know what our baseline is and move forward with that. And then again, we'll review the contract services and, in the repair and maintenance are kind of some ongoing preventative maintenance and things like the HVAC, filter changes and things that we'll have to look at more closely, so. And property insurance, we haven't had numbers, but the actual 25 numbers were much lower than were expected, so I'm hoping that may reflect in 26. They did a reevaluation, so I'm not sure where that's gonna end up yet. So those are kind of some of the main things. So those are the easy things. Those are the known things that we don't have control over. So as Jenny kind of alluded to, there's some things that we do have more control over, and that's a little bit harder to talk about our needs versus the kind of climate we're in right now. So I'm happy to open up the floor to any questions or any discussion you want to have about the budget. Any direction you provide will be what I bring back to you. Any information you want, any option you'd like to see, I can bring back to you at your next month's meeting for you to think about or consider as you move forward.
Any thoughts, questions?
I mean, my only thought is to make sure we're asking for what we need within reason, right? We understand, but I just want to make sure that we are asking for what we know needs to operate the library, and then potentially if the village says that's too much, then we look at how we're gonna flex and what we need to do, but I think that would be my one concern. And also, you do a great job of, every year we update the budget to make sure it matches similar to what we're doing, like we don't fluff accounts, so I think you do a great job of updating and keeping things with as close to real numbers as we can, so thank you for all your work on that.
When I'm looking at this, I'm wondering, especially in that request at the end, and I know that we're talking priority operational, so maybe the way that I'm thinking about it is not entirely valid, but I'm wondering, what happens if we don't get this, and like, is that a piece that we can be sharing proactively, right? Like, what are the downstream impacts if we are unable to fund this existing part-time position? Because I guess I'm thinking about it from the perspective, and obviously this is me, and like, it's a snowball effect, and like, it's all gonna happen tomorrow. That's not true. But eventually, right, if our staffing stays too low, we will have to lower the hours that our library would be open, which would lower the amount that we would get funded, which would in fact be a snowball. And I don't wanna be like, the sky is falling, but I also wanna acknowledge that like part of not being able to staff appropriately is potentially going to impact our funding down the road as well, if we don't correct it here. Am I?
So it's kind of complicated, right?
Yeah.
So if this particular position didn't get any funding, any additional funding for next year, what we would have is we would have it for summer only, which is our busiest time. So we would have it from mid-May to August, which is our busiest time when school's out. So we would have it during those busy times, which is also when staff tend to wish to have vacation time with their families. So we would still have some of that hours, but right now we're fully staffed. We try to staff the youth services desk during open hours to the best of our ability. There's times where we put a sign up or we aren't able to do that, but in general we aim to do that.
Okay, I found this on the web for
ChatGPT is gonna answer the question for you.
So for example, right now, to achieve that, right now, this person works one Saturday a month, covers till close one evening per week. And so if that person went away, either we would have a gap in those services, or we would have ask somebody else to do that. So for example, we didn't have a position, Laura and I were splitting that extra Saturday a month, and that's fine. We don't mind working our turns, but then you try to do that and your job and cover the desk, and at some point it gets kind of spread out.
Exactly.
So the other thing that we would probably have to do if we didn't have this position fully funded is we would need to probably look at programming cuts, because part of having that frees up Kelly to go visit a daycare, it frees up Abby to do an after-school program or work with Chris on the robotics program. And so there's certain types of jobs that we can't effectively or efficiently do at the desk when there's frequent interruptions, or that they just don't work together well. So we'd have to reevaluate what we're doing in terms of both programming in the library and outreach and the kinds of programming, and then what times and how we staff those service desks.
I think the programming in particular, I agree, like the service desk feels fuzzier to try and boil down, but I think, essentially stating that you don't have any more wiggle room, right? Like you no longer have that buffer, and that would result in, we would potentially fairly quickly have to reevaluate our programming both in-house and outreach into the community. I think that that's a fair thing to be articulating here, not as like a
Threat.
not a threat, yes, thank you, not a threat, but more as like, here's the consequences we see
This is the
coming.
reality check.
Yeah, I always like to think of it as like, the decision might still not come back in our favor, but have we given them all of the information in front of us so that when they make that decision, they're making it fully informed?
That's fair. And even if you look at, from the presentation, one of the things it asks for is leadership strain, decision paralysis, leadership struggling, crisis mode, right? And I would never say Jennifer's ever in a crisis, because she always has 6,000 different ways to escape things. But if you sit and think about it, if you are constantly having to come up with all those ways, constantly having to stress your leadership team, constantly having to ask people to cover things, that reality of their life does cause a lot of hurt and a lot of things that can't be done, need to be done, can't be done, and it really does cause some struggles here that I think people need to understand. And you guys do a great job covering and doing, and we appreciate it, and the community appreciates it, but I do think they need to understand what we see behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree and echo that, but I would also want to address the fatigue and emotional and mental support that we're not providing the staff when they have to cover all of these things and juggle and like do all of that. So I am cognizant of that as well. So I think highlighting that too is important. Like, I don't want anyone to be fatigued or burn out or leave, because that is, a snowball effect to Coral's point earlier. And if the village doesn't want to go out for referendum for the next 3 years, I mean, this is a long-term
Yes.
Mhm.
concern of mine.
And if it's something you want us to present, so it doesn't
Yes,
seem
agreed.
like you're trying to support your own position, if it's something that you want us to share, we will gladly
Yep.
share that.
They do want to make sure that the staff is supported in this, because I understand the stress that this puts on everyone.
Well, and we acknowledge as the board, right, that you cannot run a marathon on a starvation diet, right? So like if we are running super lean, then like our expectations of what can be accomplished are gonna have to adjust accordingly.
Great.
Thank you, Jennifer, for all of your work here. I just want you to know that I want to cry just looking at all of these numbers, so thank you for all of your work.
And Cora loves a good spreadsheet, so you know it's.
You know it's bad. I do love a good spreadsheet.
Any other feedback or concerns that anybody wants to share? I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity.
I shouldn't open my mouth. It would be bad.
Did we kind of cover the budget process department worksheet here for you, Jennifer? or
No,
does
if we
the
could talk
board
about
wanna
that
talk
for, when we're done about the budget, if we could just talk about that particular item for a
Yeah.
minute,
Yeah.
that would be,
Any
well,
other,
for as long as we need to, rather.
yep, any other questions or comments on the budget before we move on? Okay, thank you for all of your work on that, and thank you to the entire staff for everything that they're doing. Like, it's amazing. All right, now we can move on to the budget process department worksheet.
So this is something that is due by the end of July, so I regret that we don't have more time for you to share your feedback on it. But the one thing I would very much like your feedback on is what we're saying is your top priority for 2026. I don't feel like that's appropriate for me to necessarily determine on my own. But from my perspective, that if we didn't have that youth services library assistant position year-round, we would really be struggling to get through for a variety of reasons. So I guess from my perspective, that would be our top priority, to continue that. And I kind of tried to explain succinctly the background on that. So I'm open to other things, but for me, like, the staffing is number one, and that position in particular is number one to me. I think the second priority position would be we did add additional part-time position to our circulation department, because that is the one that we have most directly, the volume of library use in terms of items borrowed every day. We are having things to check in, things to pull, things, customers to help, library cards, all those things directly tie in, and that would be my second top priority after this need is met.
Do you want to include that in here?
I will leave that up to your discretion. I was told that we should pick one, and so I was trying to figure out how I
Could we
could
go
put
more
multiple
broadly and
things
just
into.
say, our one is staffing, the large, no, I hear you.
Fully staff our
Yeah.
library.
That's all right,
This
that's
one
cool.
person that we already paid for and then another.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's hard because really asking for a full-time position in this department is what we would need. So we kind of need two different part-time positions, which seems like two different things. I think maybe there's a way we can frame this as our top priority, and this is our, by the way, this is our second next in line important priority, but we also want to respect the rules kind of situation. I don't know the best way to frame that, but I am very clear in my head on what those priorities would be. I think if you ask Laura, she'd probably agree with that.
So, but would it be the equivalent of one full-time employee?
It would be.
So what we would be asking for is just to increase this one employee, but split it over two people?
Yes.
I mean, I'm seeing it as, it's one thing we're asking for.
We're asking for 40 hours.
Yeah.
We're asking for 40 hours, and it is,
Not
it
as-
goes in multiple places, but what we actually need is 40 hours a week.
To be split between the youth services and the
Yeah.
circulation,
But, I mean,
the equivalent of.
Is that-
how we use those 40 hours, I
Right.
think, is up to staff. right?
Well,
Like, because what we're asking
That's
for
fair.
is
The library board.
40 hours to
That's
fully
fair.
staff our library.
that's fair. If we're asking for 40 hours a week in order to, address the critical staffing.
How that is then structured is up to our staff.
Well, and how
Am I
that
right?
is
in-
structured arguably
Is the
could be determined
board.
further down the road when,
Right.
yeah.
It depends on the instructions that were given to you in this
We seem
process.
hesitant too, we don't wanna make it
No.
awkward for you
No.
either.
Yeah, so it says, your department could receive one singular discrete operational item, one new staff member.
Discrete makes it kind of a
Yeah, that's,
stickler, I
that's
would
where
say.
I struggle with
Yep,
it,
nope, you're probably right.
because I feel like, yeah.
I'm all for bending rules, but also.
Right.
Sometimes you make it less likely when you push a little.
Agree.
Gotta
Agreed.
agree on.
Agreed. But I'm just asking the question.
It's a good
Like,
question to ask.
Does it,
Discrete operational item, here's my thought. We already have a certain number of hours, right, that we are funded normally. Could we just ask for the additional hours that would equal 40 hours a week for the year? That's a discrete item, is the number of hours, and then we would be able to.
and how you use those hours is,
How would you fund that though? Like, let's, for a second, think about people as like a number, right?
Mhm.
Forgive, but like, how would we ask to fund that? If we're saying 40 hours, we would have to give some kind of a loaded or unloaded cost for that person. And like, what cost would be put on there? Because that's gonna be a scale, I would think.
right.
It's also 40 hours for what?
Yeah, and they're gonna ask for the specifics.
I would-
Otherwise, it's not meaningful either. Oh, what, Leslie, you wouldn't just give me 40 fun hours? Like, sure, anywhere in the school district? I don't get it.
20 hours to youth services and 20 hours to circulation.
I would support whatever your judgment is on
Yes.
this,
Yeah.
Jennifer.
As what I was just asking.
I think if you're the most comfortable with one discrete item, I trust you, you've been doing this longer than
We have.
I believe this was
Yes.
the number one priority last year also. Was it the year
Yes.
before also?
Yep. I think the year before we wanted also to give us step raises.
I think last year it was related to that, but like, not this exact position.
Sounds
Sorry,
like you
we
need
threw a
motion.
lot at you.
Should we make a motion that this is what we want to do, because it seems like this is.
Yes.
So, I mean, if this doesn't happen, my staff is gonna be
Riot.
very unhappy with me. So I think this is critical.
Okay.
But I'm also thinking about the other need is important. I would say it's less critical, but it's also important. It would be our new top priority after this. So is there a way to respond as directed and still include that
Yeah,
information to show
I'm
that,
just
hey,
thinking
this
about
is
what
still
Jenny
what
said
I'd like
about
to do.
asking for what we need.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing both of those things.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with it. Like, cause, and I know that you put an immense amount of thought and work into this.
Oh, that's, I mean, I would, what I would prefer to say is, hey, this is the top priority as approved by the library board, because that shows that
That
it's
it's not just you.
me thinking that.
right.
But I also don't wanna say something that doesn't reflect what you feel the priorities are, so that's why you're here, that's why we're asking you. I guess I'm just not sure, it's just a tough
It's a tough
time
position. Yeah.
to advocate for our needs, but then also realize other departments have some of the same struggles, but maybe in unique, different ways. And
Absolutely.
it's hard, because we want those departments to all have what they need too, but I don't wanna under-support our staff when we could have supported them better. It's a hard thing. So it's up to you.
Okay.
So as I'm looking at the overall worksheet, right? And I'm looking at, there's a spot there, right, for operational challenges, limiting service delivery, which is what our staffing is doing currently, right? I think it's okay for this, I agree, this is the top priority. I'm wondering if even while you are stating this is our top priority, I think it's also okay to say, even if we get this, we will not alleviate that full impact on service delivery. So instead of like saying, hey, we want 40 hours, I think it's fair for us to say, our top priority is this 20 hours, and that will not bring us up to like treading water.
I'm on board, I can get on board with that.
It's a wordsmithing issue, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So you declare the top priority, and then the paragraph underneath it, you make a statement related to the fact that, well, this is the most critical need, there is a close second, and it is. That way you're sticking to the instructions, but you're also making a statement.
In the paragraph below where you said this priority will essentially allow us to continue our current levels of staffing, that could be the place to say which are not sufficient.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then go on
a
to
good
say something more about what's really needed to be able to do that.
It might also be fair to give it a qualifier. Current levels would allow us to maintain current levels of staffing or current sufficient staffing if circulation numbers or if visitation numbers remain consistent. But you're in a trajectory that's upward.
Yeah.
So even if you get this, you still may end up having to cut services after a period of time
Mm-hmm.
if the number of visits and the circulation continues to increase.
Which is what we hope, right?
Right.
But we,
Absolutely.
Well,
we are
it's happening
As-
regardless of hope or not, it's
As you
happening.
pointed out, Coral, increased circulation, and we see it in the numbers
Helps with our revenue.
that increases revenue as well. And so if circulation decreases revenue from the county, et cetera,
Yeah.
we just heard all of that, right?
The community
Increases.
loves this library though, so I think it's
Mhm.
important to
Yeah, that's right, they
mention
do.
that, that there's choices are being made.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that someone will move to move forward with the recommendation to make funding the LTE Youth Services Library Assistant position at 20 hours a week, with the caveat that we know that this will not fully meet our needs.
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Thank
second
you,
that.
thank you. Any further discussion? Comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer, for all of the work that you've put into this. And the wonderful support that you give the staff and the staff gives you. I am so incredibly thankful to be a part of this, so, thank you.
Yeah, I may accept volunteers with wordsmithing.
Of course, since we had all of our opinions, I think it's
It's always fair.
Alrighty, we are moving on to our next meeting. It is scheduled for Wednesday, August 13th, here at the library at 5:15 p.m. Are there any requests for future agenda items at this time?
Just that I'll be joining by whatever remote joining is.
What we'll be doing is we'll be piloting, trying to do it by Zoom for you, and then I might see OCA if we can give them another option for set up for future options, because can use a webcam and things and see if that's helpful for anybody.
Cool.
So we'll see what we can do with that.
Cool.
Oh.
And I know John's not here tonight, but he has made a request that we discuss donor recognition for the capital campaign at the next meeting that he is able to attend, and I believe that will be in September.
Okay.
So just wanted to make that on record too. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thank you.